Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
The New York Jets are making moves. Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Monday, March 10th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 507 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today was the start of NFL free agency, and the New York Jets, Darren Muji, Aaron Glenn, have made two moves, signing quarterback Justin Fields and cornerback Brandon Stevens. It was a busy day for the Jets and a busy day across the NFL. And I want to dive right into both of these signings, starting here with Justin Fields. It was announced earlier today, the first signing for the New York Jets. The Jets are signing Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million contract, $30 million in guarantees, and that $40 million over 2 years comes out to $20 million per year. And we've talked about Justin Fields a lot on this podcast. You guys know where I stood on Justin Fields. And what was a relatively underwhelming free agent quarterback class, Justin Fields, to me, and I think to many other Jet fans, stood out as the obvious, clear, most intriguing and exciting option that was realistic for the New York Jets to go out and get. And you kind of got this feeling that this move was going to happen over the last couple of days. Early in the offseason, it felt like it was probably not going to happen. It felt like Fields might be a little out of the Jets' price range. You had some, questions about if Fields would just want to return to Pittsburgh and not really look around, if he was okay with that situation. But over the last week, and especially even into this morning, you saw some reports that there was mutual interest, and even this morning, some reports that it felt like the Steelers kind of started to realize that Fields was probably not going to come back. So they started to look at their other options around the league. It was a league-wide feeling that Fields would end up in the green and white, and it was only a matter of time. And we got that answer. And I think if you're a Jet fan, you should be happy about this. I think if you're a Jet fan, you should be okay with this move. I think this is the smart move, in my opinion, for the New York Jets. This is a low-risk, high-reward move at the quarterback position. You're bringing in a guy who is just 26 years old, a former first-round pick who spent 3 years with Chicago, had a lot of ups and downs, ultimately didn't work out, then goes to Pittsburgh last year, started 6 games, then got benched for Russell Wilson, went 4-2 in those 6 games, similar to his entire career, had some ups, had some downs, but you're getting a guy that's young, that's got a lot of potential, that's got some things he needs to work on, but you're bringing him in as a low-risk move because it's kind of a stopgap option with the high reward of maybe you run into your Sam Darnold, your Baker Mayfield, even a Geno Smith, although he's a little bit different because it took him much longer to get on a successful path in the NFL. Darnold and Mayfield were much more closer to the Justin Fields path, obviously both being drafted in 2018. Fields here entering year number 5. That's the possibility. That's the potential, is that maybe he comes into the system and Tanner Engstrand and this offensive staff is able to tap into some of his untapped potential that hasn't lived up to full expectations just yet. And you find a solution. You find a long-term answer there. That's your high reward. The low risk is it's only a 2-year deal, and you're bringing in a guy that's got some, does some good things, can keep you competitive, and can really transform this offense into a legitimate ground and pound, run the football down your throat. He was clearly the most intriguing option and definitely one of the better options here for the New York Jets. You look at his season last year with the Steelers. Like I mentioned, that 4-2 record, 66.3% of his passes were completed, 1,106 yards, 6.9 yards per completion, 5 touchdowns a pick, 93.9 passer rating. He also added on 55 carries for 231 yards and 5 touchdowns in those 6 starts. Of course, the winning record is one of the things that really pops out to you, trying to keep this team competitive here, build a culture, and put yourself in a situation next year where you can still be able to win football games even without some of your pieces, of course, from last year and with Justin Fields and the rest of this team. The biggest thing with Fields we've talked about, right? The rushing ability is his biggest strength. It's his biggest strength. His rushing ability is one of the best in the NFL. You look at this guy's career rushing numbers in 50 career games played, both starting and non-starting combined. 418 carries, 2,509 yards, 6 yards per carry, 19 touchdowns, 149 first downs picked up. And he also had 1,000 yards in 2022, where he put up 1,143 yards that season and 8 touchdowns. A career year in all rushing statistical categories. I think you look at this Jets offense now with Justin Fields, and I think you've got to sort of envision what we see in Baltimore now. And by no means am I comparing Justin Fields to Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that similar ground and pound offense with Lamar running it at times and Derrick Henry doing it other times, that's what you're going to see here with the Jets. Not only do you have an offensive coordinator that's coming from a team in Detroit where they had David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs as one of the most lethal 1-2 punches in the backfield in the NFL. You have that here in New York with 2 solid options in Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, and now you add Fields to the mix, and you kind of get that Detroit Lions 1-2 punch running back room, plus that Fields Breece Hall offense, similar to, or at least under the same scheme, same look as Derrick Henry and Lamar in Baltimore. Again, not saying that's going to be how good it is, but that's what you should expect. A ground and pound team that's going to run the ball down your throats, try and win games that way, also win games with good defense. That's what the Jets are going to try and do here with Fields, while also trying to tap into some of that untapped potential from a passing perspective, because that's not his strength. We all know that. You look at his career numbers, he's completed 61.1% of his passes, 45 touchdowns, 31 interceptions in his career, 7,780 yards. He's never had a season where he's thrown for over 3,000 yards. It's all been in the 2s and the 1s. So the passing ability we know needs to improve. And you see what Tanner Engstrand can get out of him. But it's the most intriguing option. It's a low risk, high reward. I think all Jet fans should agree and be on board with this. Are the Jets going to win a Super Bowl with Justin Fields? That's not what nobody's saying. But can he come in here, run an offense, utilize his legs, bring some energy, find an identity on this offense? I think that's something else too. This team has not had an identity in years. You know what this offense's identity is going to be. It's going to be run the ball down your throats until you can stop us. That's what it's going to be. And Fields only adds to that. So I like this move. I think it's a smart move for the Jets. I've said for a while, I want a guy that can run. I want a guy that can move. I want a guy that can be intriguing. That can be fun to watch. You're not sitting there for 17 games watching some quarterback stand in the pocket and just get drilled every other play. A Kirk Cousins, if you went down that type of road. What you're getting out of Fields is the complete opposite. You're getting a young player who hasn't quite panned out yet, but maybe you're able to revive him. And at worst, he's a quality stopgap. At worst. At best, you find your new version of Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, those type of guys, where you unlock something here and he has some long-term success. That's the best case scenario. Probably won't happen, but look, stopgap, quality quarterback, that's what Fields can bring. At least. That's the low risk, high reward we're talking about. So, a lot of Jet fans should be excited. A lot of Jet fans should be happy about this. And I will say this too. A lot of Jet fans today are getting their quarterback that they wanted in 2021. It only took, 4 years longer, but a lot of people wanted Fields at 2 in 2021. He, of course, goes 11 to Chicago. Jets take Zach Wilson, who is now back in the AFC East, signed, with the Dolphins earlier today. So that was certainly interesting. But there is a lot of Jet fans that are getting a guy in Fields who they wanted just a couple years ago. Different story, of course, different expectations, but he is in the green and white after all. So that's the Justin Fields move. Moving on now to the next move of the day here for the New York Jets. I'll be honest, this is an interesting one. I will be completely transparent. Going into today, going into free agency, even when this move was made, I did not know much about Brandon Stephens at all. Obviously, I've done a lot of research for him before today's podcast, watched a couple clips of film on him. You read up on him a little bit more, have a better understanding now. But this certainly came by a surprise, I think, if you're the New York Jets or a Jet fan, rather. Jets signed cornerback Brandon Stephens. So you find your cornerback number 2 next to Sauce Gardner. It's a 3-year, $36 million deal, $23 million fully guaranteed. That 36 over 3 years rounds out to about $12 million per year. Like I said, didn't know a ton on him at first, but just some general background info. 27 years old, out of SMU, was a third-round pick, 104th overall in 2021. Has played with the Ravens, of course, all 4 years of his career, and he's kind of been up and down. This is a very interesting signing. I think if you're a lot of Jet fans, myself included, you don't really know how to feel about it. It's kind of one of those signings that nobody saw coming. Not a ton of people know about him. And a guy that's had a very up and down career so far, where he has shown some flashes, has shown some good things in his 65 career, in some of his 65 career games with Baltimore spread across 4 years. But he's also had some rough moments. He's also had some lapses, especially in coverage. Last year in particular was a really poor season for him. This to me feels like a high risk, high reward in a way, because you're paying him actually a good amount of money. I mean, DJ Reed signed a $48 million contract over 3 years with the Lions earlier today. Carlton Davis as well signed, of course, with the Patriots earlier today. And that was a 3-year, $60 million deal. So much larger. So is cheaper from that, but not a whole lot cheaper than DJ Reed. Only about $12 million less, which I guess is a decent amount, but not crazy, crazy cheap. For a guy that is kind of 50-50, I guess. And I'm not saying I don't like the move. It's just, it's kind of a high risk, high reward where decent amount of money being paid to him. And he's a guy that is only 27. The high risk is it completely fails and he kind of plays like he did last year. Or the high reward is Aaron Glenn works with him. Cornerback. He's only 27 years old, only entering year number 5. And you find something in him and he pans out. Now, I also think some Jet fans have to take into account too. For those who hate this move, he's a cornerback too. You're not signing him to come in here as a cornerback 1. He is a cornerback 2. And there still is a chance you bring in Brandon Echols. So I think you have to put that in consideration. It's not like he's coming in here and filling the shoes of if we needed to find a replacement for Sauce or something like that. No, he's coming in here as a cornerback 2 alongside Sauce. And of course, next to Michael Carter in the nickel as well. But like I said, last year was rough. Now, I will say one thing about Brandon Stephens, which I think is intriguing. Very good against the run. Very good tackler downhill tackler, phenomenal against the run. Coverage, though, has had some lapses. He does bring some versatility. He can play both safety and cornerback, which is intriguing, and I think something that obviously the Jets seem to value here. But when you look at his coverage numbers last year, they were certainly rough. His whole body of work, finished the season playing in all 17 games, 70 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 10 passes defended. But you look at some of the numbers from a PFF grade perspective, and even just some of the times he was targeted was rough. He allowed a 107.4 passer rating on throws targeted to him. And he also tallied just a 50.7 coverage grade, which was well below average, ranking 174th out of 223 cornerbacks who saw playing time last year. His overall grade of 55.8 was 153rd out of 223, which was also below average. Last year was a very rough year for him. When you look at him from a coverage perspective, last year was statistically in many areas the worst coverage season for him, which again is that little bit of that high risk. You're banking on him to bounce back from a rough year and find consistent play from him from a coverage perspective that he hasn't quite found in Baltimore. Now, I do talk about the positives, right? The run defense, as I mentioned, is a strength. Last year had a 70.7 run defense grade, which was above average, 50th out of 223. And not that this means a ton, but his pass rush grade was crazy good. 92.9 pass rush grade, third among every cornerback in the NFL. Kind of just an interesting, crazy stat. From a pass rushing perspective, very productive. And throughout his career, he's been very good against the run. That's his strength. Coverage, questionable. Not a big interception guy, only 2 in his career. All of those came in 2023. But again, you're getting a guy who is still on the younger side. And the positive is Glenn, cornerback, was a good ball hawking cornerback, had his handful of interceptions, especially with the Jets. Can he help teach him a little bit of that? Develop him into a better coverage corner. He's also playing alongside Sauce. That's where the upside can maybe come in, and you can see him here flourish a little bit more than he did in Baltimore, after they took him in the 3rd round. Certainly an interesting move. When you look at his career numbers, 65 games played, 259 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 32 passes defended in his career, and of course those 2 interceptions, which came in 2023. And 2023 really was one of his better years for a season in his career so far. So coming off of a year where he was very productive in 2023, best coverage year by far, last year wasn't great at all. So get back to that more 2023 form and keep that up consistently, and you got yourself a good number 2. Opposite part of that is 2024, and he plays more like that. That's where some of the concerns come about. But it's a cornerback too. And then every GM, every head coach, every regime has those John Simpson-like finds, right? Where those guys that aren't great up until whatever team they sign with, and then they take off. John Simpson was never that good. Comes to the Jets, was huge last year. Can Brandon Stevens be that type of guy where kind of throughout his career, but is still young, still in the prime of his career, gets in the right position, changes scenery, and is able to take off? Maybe that's the case. Every GM has those type of players where when the signing happens, it's kind of, you don't really love it, you don't hate it, it's kind of in the middle. And then you come out to eventually love the move, similar to John Simpson. Did you get that here in Brandon Stevens? Only time will tell. I think it's a move with upside, though. I will say that because he's still young. Only entering year 5 at 27 years old. So that's the Brandon Stevens stuff. Just some other moves for the Jets or relating to the Jets. The Jets lost 4 free agents today. No surprise, really, with any of these ones. I guess Morgan Moses would be the biggest one just because there was some possibility of him coming back. Morgan Moses, though, goes to the Patriots. DJ Reed goes to the Lions. I'm happy for DJ Reed. Secure the bag. Good pickup for the Lions. DJ Reed was a very solid Jet. Came here 3 seasons, was very good. Happy to see him get the money elsewhere. Hassan Reddick to the Buccaneers is kind of crazy. Good luck with that, Tampa. That's all I'll say with that. Javon Kinlaw to Washington, to me, was so stupid. They gave him, 3-year, $45 million deal. Awful signing, in my opinion, for Washington. Kinlaw coming off of a career worst season with the Jets where he honestly should have been benched in multiple different situations last year, but wasn't. Kinlaw, though, goes to Washington. Darnold goes to the Seahawks. Happy for him. He gets a big contract worth up to $100 million over 3 years. And in one other move for the Jets, Tony Adams, restricted free agent. Jets placed the right of first refusal tender on him, 1 year, $3.2 million. So Tony Adams could return here. Obviously, safety depth there. Jets still have a lot of other work to do from a just overall roster perspective. Figure out that final piece on the offensive line. Who's your right tackle? Of course, defensive line help. You brought back Jamian Sherwood, which was the right move. Safety, though, need 2 more. So still a lot of work to do. But I think today, 2 moves in, and I think you like to start. Fields, you definitely like it. Stevens, I guess you're cautiously optimistic. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on the 2 signings today for the New York Jets? Quarterback Justin Fields and cornerback Brandon Stevens. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. We'll be, of course, back when any other signing over the next couple days. Stay tuned for that. And until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.